Okay. Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for showing up. When I was asked to come and present on Lean Kanban Day, I was thinking, what it is that I've done that has been useful for me and potentially may be of interest to you. So I thought, yeah, I know what. I'll come and talk about flow management and flow thinking. I didn't realize that you'd be overflowing by now. But there we are. So I'm going to talk to you about what I've done. It's been useful for clients. We've achieved significant reductions in time to launch. We'll walk through that. Hopefully you can see that. And there is some data and evidence. But Dan isn't here, so there we go. So this is the agenda for today. Just quickly, very briefly talk through. Oh, by the way, we've got about 40 minutes. I plan to be done in about 30 minutes. So if there are any questions, you can ask at the end. Or if there's any burning questions, just ask me as we're going through. So have a quick look at how we manage work. What's the impact of sort of focusing on efficiency, and what would happen potentially if we looked at flow of work, and a quick summary and catch up. So organization structures are based on hierarchical command and control systems that I'm sure you all know. And our management training is to make sure that we have batches and we optimize for batch flow. And part of that is that we need to keep people busy, and also we need high utilization because we're looking for output per head. The more output we have, the more efficient we are. And that's sort of part of our training, part of intuition. And it's not done as managers. We don't do this out of malice. We do it part of our training that we've been taught and trained to do and behave in this way. And that's what we do. So what we do is that when work comes in, usually we break the work down into work breakdown structures, and we pass it through different teams and different departments. They get on and do their own bit. What happens in this sort of scenario is that the customer purpose is lost. By the time we are working on it, we are working on our bit, and we lose focus of the whole why we're doing this and what was it that the customer actually wanted. We now have got our bit to look at and focus on, and therefore we ignore everything else. And this is a simple example of a till receipt. Like Tesco's these days, that's where I shop most of the time. You go in there, you get lots of bits of paper coming out. But one of them is to say, how much you saved potentially. And then there is another voucher to say, if you went elsewhere, you could have saved an extra £3 or something. And here's a voucher for you on your next shopping trip. You'll save £3. So that's just a simple breakdown of that. If I was dealing with it, I'd potentially say, oh yeah, I need some DBA work, I need some development work, I need some messaging, I need some testing. Here's the work for you. Pass it down to the teams and let them get on with their bit of the work. So that's what we're doing. So we are managing, as managers, our focus is on managing the worker. So we are saying, have people got enough work to do? Are they busy enough? Have I got enough demand for the capacity that I have? If there isn't, I need to create more demand to keep them busy. Because otherwise, there's also the thinking that if they're not busy, then what are they doing? So that's what we do. I will go to the next one. So again, so the functional thinking leads us to thinking that the sooner we start something, the sooner we finish. The more we start, the more we finish. And this leads to overburdening of the team and the people that are working there, increases the stress in the system, definitely increases the chances and opportunity for defects and less flow. But what we don't see, or what we forget, is that actually what works is the completed work. It's not the individual parts. They do not matter. It's only when we complete. So our ability to deliver is our ability to complete work, not the ability to start work, or it's not ability of how many bits of work we have in flight at any given time. So just a quick recap on the one that we did. So basically what happens as the work comes in, we break it down, and then we start managing jobs. So we've got jobs flowing through the system. Everybody's working on their bit. I'm happy as a manager that there are enough jobs in the system and people are busy. I don't have anybody sitting there doing nothing because I'm paying them to be doing work. Therefore, if they're not busy, they can't be any good. So all these things, all these little jobs that are going around in here, actually they're irrelevant. The only thing that matters is when we actually get that fulfilled or satisfied customer request. But when we're working after the breakdown, the signal about the customer demand and request becomes very, very weak, and we potentially may forget why we are working on this thing. So our thinking is always about, I've got to keep them busy. We have to have work for everybody in the system. So if you don't have work for people, you know, there's the thought at the back of my mind, well, if I've got people in there and they're not busy, why am I then paying them for, you know? They've got to be doing something. But the question is busyness good business? Well, we know impact of business. It doesn't give us good flow. We'll end up with a lot of cars or lots of work in progress, but not many things getting out at the end. Part of the reason for this, and I think that a large part of this, is because of our training. You know, as managers, we have been told that the way to get jobs done is to have batches and work on batches efficiently. And we believe that batches flow smoothly from one team to the other or from one function to the other. Reality is that thinking also applies to the team or the person that received the batch. They kind of batch their work as well. You know, if there's a bit of DBA work in here, well, I'm going to wait for another 3 that is going to come and then I'll do them together. And also departments and teams do not have aligned priorities. What is priority number 1 to you when it comes to me is not necessarily my priority number 1. So batches and work waits in there, and that waiting adds delay for the customer and leads. So we think that work flows very, very smoothly. As soon as I hand it off from my team to the other team starts working on it, and they pass it to the other one, to the other one, to the other one, and I get clean and good customer service. Reality is that doesn't happen. Work waits, customer gets delayed before they get service, and they are not happy with the length of time that it takes. So this is the reality of what happens. We get work, basically batches of work going from one team or one department to the other, and they wait in sequence or in their part of the different kind of selection criteria, different kind of priority, and the customer ends up getting a poor service. So when it comes to business agility and transformation, we need to be mindful of the organization boundaries and structures and the impact that they have on the flow of work. This also leads to us thinking, I've seen this, I'm pretty sure a lot of you have seen this. You see it at all levels. Usually when teams start their sort of agility journey, and if you're doing Scrum or anything that has got a stand-up in it, you ask people what they're doing. The response is, I've done this yesterday, I'm going to do this today. This is probably going to get in my way, if they say that at all. So it's all activity-based, and it's not about sort of the work. So we are only talking about my bit of the work, and we're not saying, okay, for me to actually get this service, what it is I need to do, or what it is that somebody else needs to do, how do I help somebody else, or what it is I need from the person who's giving me the work to give me in a good position so I can make sure this flows through the system. But that sort of thinking and that behavior is at all levels. So from a manager or head of department, when I'm going to a meeting, a steering group meeting or anything like that, my focus is, when I go in there, can I come back and say that the problem is not in my team? You know, if I can say that, I'm happy going to that meeting. You know, it doesn't matter that there's a problem somewhere else, but I can go in there and say, yeah, we're good. You know, so, and that behavior, if you like, is reinforced by the way we act and talk to our team, and the team members behave that way as well. So I don't need to. So this is all setting the scene. So hopefully that's got us to starting very soon. So this is what happens. As a result of that, we get late delivery, poor customer service, poor quality, high utilization of people. People are stressed out. Everybody is busy, working really hard, long hours, weekends, but we don't really deliver what we want to deliver. So there you go. So what happens if we focused on flow? So we could, there is another way, we could focus on flow. And these are some of the steps that sort of I tried to distill down to say what it is that works. this is what it is. I mean, there's a key step missing in there, and that's the study to really study your system. But this is my assumption, or this is actually distilling down of what went on for over 3 years or 2 years. So this is about obviously study your system, understand exactly what it is, and try and define your system boundary as close to the edge. At the edge, I mean the customer edge. The external customer, the person who's paying for your service or using your service. That's the edge. Of course, your context will limit you to how realistic that is. If you work in a big organization with multiple hierarchies, multiple departments and functions, that may not be achievable day one. But you try and extend that. You may start in a team, but your goal is always to extend that as close to the customer edge as possible. That's useful to sort of bear in mind and try and extend it. The other thing is to know where is your work coming from. What's the demand that you're getting, what type of work you get. What's your capability for dealing with the kind of work? How quickly do you finish something? How long does it take? Where does it wait? Where are the queues? How many items are in a queue? How long does it take for an item to clear a queue? So all of those things are important for you to have, and not only understand, but actually have measures for those things. Because when it comes to say, we have changed something and something has improved, unless you know your capability, unless you have the baseline, then it becomes, well, we don't know. We did something and something may have improved, may have got worse. So study your system, get your capability measure, analyze your demand, understand your capability, get your flow, and visualize the system. So let's look at a couple of scenarios. The first scenario, big organization, multiple distributed teams in UK and overseas, offshore, a couple of places offshore, multiple suppliers, multiple sort of team made up of partners, independents, and permanent team members. So this is the reason for this slide is just to let you know that it is not, I'm not talking about a small, like 200 people organization. So not that matters. In actual fact, the next scenario will show that, because before I did this, the other organization, I always had the impression that smaller organizations are more effective, they get work done quicker. That's not always the case. So just to get you an idea, give you an idea, this is a very high-level process flow. So if I have an idea and I want to make it live, I want to change this idea into a working product, this is the kind of things I need to do. I need a business case. I need to go to an investment board which says yay or nay to it. Assuming they say yes to it, then that idea sits on the list of approved ideas waiting for a release. And once the idea is approved, another team, another board, if you like, decides what needs to go into a release. We get candidate set of projects for a release, and then you start working on a release. So that's a high-level makeup of the overview of the process. There is also work that is done both pre- and post-project by the business analysts that take the initiative, the idea, the business case, and create stories for it. So when it comes to working on the actual project, you're actually working on the stories. So the pre-project, during the project, and post-project. So post-project work is the whole idea, the whole concept is that we try and work on MVPs, trying to get the minimum viable product out. That's also a journey. You'll see it didn't sort of start from the beginning. So what we think we need may not necessarily be what gets done during the project. Some functions, some scopes will be, if you like, some scope will be removed, some will be changed, and some may never be delivered. And that's the post-project end. So what didn't get delivered or what got changed, so that goes into the pile for evaluation and potentially being another project for later on, or never be done, because if there's no value in it, once we go live, then we may never touch it. But that's the kind of setup. So what about the visibility and governance that we have in place? So it's both about daily meetings, weekly and every other week. So daily meetings is coordination between the sort of development manager and the sort of scrum masters or iteration managers. It's not quite go and see that was in the next in the room Martin Burns was just doing a session. Some of you may or may not have been there. It's not quite go-see, but this is for the team to bring the problems and escalations to the manager to say, look, these are the kind of things we are struggling with. These we got in hand. These we need you to escalate and resolve. And then that sort of happens daily, and you go back and sort of check up on him and say what he's done. And during the day, you can do that as well. There is also an update to the release management board, which is to know where is the release going. I'm not going to go through all of those unless there is anything that's, I mean, it's fairly obvious. The whole purpose is to make sure that we get the business governance, technical governance, and delivery governance in place. Let's just see. So there is, let's just say OK to this. Let's see what happens. There's a lot of, we sort of capture the data, we visualize the work. This is just showing some of the capability measures that we have. When do we think potentially we can finish this MVP product that we're working on? What is our capability? What is our delivery capability? What are the defects? And there are other sort of measures that we have, but just to give you a flavor of, it's not about just working blind. So the thing that we wanted most, I think, hopefully, is this. So some of the release times. So this is what's been achieved over a 3-year journey. Significant reduction, but also, more importantly, the reduction isn't in the build phase. It's not an IT change only. It's looking at how long it takes for an idea to come to you, how long we spend on elaborating and building out an idea, writing detailed stories. As you can see, it's reduced. Hopefully you can read that. Yeah. 240 days, down to 24, 90, 50, and you can see that it's been a huge shift. Now, this is not, I show it as a clean step, 3 bars. It's not obviously been as clean as this. The journey has been over a number of years, and these are the end states, so it's not like every release we've reduced it by X. So part of getting to this stage has been to get good, thank you, get the engineering practices in place that gave us the predictability and reliability that we wanted. So we could deliver what we wanted on time and with fairly low or no defects at all. So that then opened up, if you like, or got us the seat on the table to be able to talk about, okay, what about this work that we get? Why does it take so many days, 200 days, for us to give a pretty detailed spec? Not kidding, it's probably about close to 2-inch thick, Word document that is worth of stuff to say, get on with it, where actually in reality, hardly anybody reads it, And then we end up sort of having to rework it, write stories and expand on those, and then talk to the product owners, and also change the thinking from, we must have everything. The product must have every possible thing that we can think of in it before we can launch it, to moving into a true MVP, to say what is the minimum thing we could do that we could launch and get some feedback from the market.
Can I just ask a quick question on those figures? And if it's a silly question, just move on. But the numbers seem to drop dramatically there for things going through to the investment board. Is that because you concentrated on things like you're saying there, the MVP? Is it because some of those ideas are just silly and you got rid of them, or we get through stuff? Why was there a big drop?
Okay, so that particular, the reason that they were dropped, the key difference is that they were smaller projects. That 2011 is a huge, this was, when we thought we must have one product and it must have everything in it. If we get it right, we'll have customers queuing up. We just start counting the money. And that thinking changed, and instead of having one big mega initiative, we went into smaller initiatives and smaller projects. And that's the key, one of the key reasons. You'll actually see, because this, as I said, this is like distilled, cleaned version. You'll see in a couple of slides that actually that 45 or 34 days, slightly lying, but you'll see the details. So when I go through one particular release, you see how long projects in a particular release, if you like, have been waiting to get onto a release. So you'll see it. So that's kind of the trend, if you like. That's the way it's going. But you'll see the actual. So So this is, if you like, this is part of what we've done. Good engineering practices, basically based on XP, got us the seat on the board, allowed other people and other teams to see what you're doing, trying to say, okay, that looks good, that makes sense, let's get a bit of that. And that's where we are. So this slide, I think you've seen it 2 or 3 times today already. So that's effectively the MVP, trying to break it down into a smaller chunk rather than here's one big product, let's get it all out. The market helped us. Thank you. So there we are. So that's what we're doing. No questions on there, I don't think. So this answers partly answers your question. So this is a real release, and these are the different projects that make up that release, and they waited for different times, if you like, to go through. And then this sort of visualization and capturing this data allows us to ask those questions. Do we really need to have something waiting 216 days before it comes to a project? If it was valid 200 days ago, is it still valid for us to do it? Are we just doing it because we got emotional attachment to it, or is there real business benefit for doing this kind of thing? There's another slide that looks at it slightly differently, but that's basically what you can see. This one. So this one shows you, so the negative numbers basically means that a project was pulled into a release. So a release started, we had approved projects to get done, and some of those approved projects made into your release backlog, if you like. The release backlog wasn't enough, so we needed more work. As work gets done, we pull more work in. So these that are negative, because the time, if you like, time 0, as far as this diagram is concerned, is when we started the release, the delivery of the release. So as we're delivering, so we worked on the stuff that's already been approved, but then more stuff came in, tactical projects, if you like, whatever you want to call them, but basically work that came on board while we were releasing because they were important. The other thing about this diagram that I find interesting is that the way we work, and most organizations, and I think most people work that way, you try and de-risk what's important for you. So the stuff that has been waiting the longest is the stuff that we really, really want out of the release. So we start working on those early, and they wait a long time. So that's a different kind of dialogue to have and look at, have we got the batch size right? Have we got the right mix? Is the length? But that's but unless we know these things, unless we have the data, we can't have those kind of dialogues. Any questions there? No? Good. Okay, so what? So I think I've already mentioned this, but we've managed to significantly reduce the number of defects. We managed to significantly increase the number of releases per year. We had much better collaboration across the functions and departments, and happier team members working in there. There are other things in there. And I think the last bit is sort of we moving from certainty to uncertainty. That was a key thing, because we started the journey from we know exactly what the market wants. This is the product they want. These are the features they want. They want 2 of these, 1 of these, 3 of those. If we launch this, we'll have the market, and customers queuing up. That didn't quite work, so we sort of learned from that and went forward. So that's how we got there. Basically focused on visualizing the flow of work. So there's a lot of data that is gathered behind these things and is visualized throughout the delivery. So it's not just you look at it afterwards and say, oh, that looks good. But there's a lot of visualization that we have that everybody in the team, in the managers, they have access to it. So we know how long it takes for us to get something done, and that's what gives us the predictability. So we can, with reasonably high degree of confidence, be able to say, yes, this project will get done in this release, and we can do 4 more, or we can do 3 more, or we can do 6 more, or we can do none. That's just the one, that's enough. So we can do that. Actually, having cross-functional teams and sort of building some of the functions that are outside the IT, and they still are. So hierarchical structures haven't been changed, but the delivery structure has. So the delivery team is more value stream aligned now than it was before. So we used to hand over things to sort of UAT function at the end, that they would start to sort of find a lot of defects with it, but we're working together. sort of the idea generation and sort of capturing the idea was fairly detached, was done, first, and then you get things lobbed over the fence. There's still a lot of work to be done in that area. It's not by any means perfect, but it's getting closer to getting some insights. We're getting dips of insight. Hopefully we'll get to a situation where it's continually flowing. So that's that one. Second scenario is a much smaller organization. It's UK-based, everybody co-located, working together, less than 300 people in total. And this is how they deliver. This is how long it takes them to deliver. So 114 days to complete a project. This is a project. 41 days of that is waiting. And these wait cycles are across functions, or across departments. So we're not looking at how long it takes within a development, a department. So development gives it to UAT, gives it to production, or the product management gives it to you, whatever. So that's, as you can see, there's a lot of weight. Considering the company is drastically smaller and everybody is co-located in the same office, you expect things to be a lot better. And then, when I first sort of captured this and showed it, the question was, oh, but this is only one of them, surely be much better. So we looked at all the projects that they had for about 2 years or so. It actually got worse. So there's more wait time, when you look at the whole portfolio of the 3 years worth of projects, it was worse. So this is it, really. So, if you're focusing on busyness and you're trying to keep everybody busy and you're not focusing on flow of work and you're not seeing how long does it take for me to satisfy a customer demand and request, your focus is off. Therefore, you will be very, very good at managing the batches, and you'll have high efficiency batches, and the batches will go through your system efficiently, but not necessarily effectively. So you may not get the customer service that you're after, but that's because your focus is narrow. It's part of this is because of the if you like, our measures, our pay is all silo and functional based, but we need to sort of work with that, within that constraint, but get a wider view and help. So there you go. So we have quick summary of efficiency versus flow or effectiveness, which I'm pretty sure everybody in this room knows that. If anybody doesn't know that, happy to go through any of those things. Output per head and doing my bit, I think those are the signals and the behaviors that you see a lot. My bit is done. You say, where are we with this? Development is done. Yeah, but what does that mean, development is done? Well, we haven't tested it. We haven't launched it. There is no environment for UATing it and all that stuff. So that's where we lose sight of, I'm only looking at my bit. And when we're working on flow, we'll actually have totally different, the customer purpose or fulfilling the customer request is the key number one, if you like, focus. And that makes a huge difference. I think that's about it. And there you go. That's the quiz, which I'm sure all of you will answer correctly and pass. So any questions, I'm happy to answer.
At the bottom of your functional efficiency versus slow effectiveness, you talked about satisfaction of employees. How did you measure that, and how did you demonstrate improved employee satisfaction and improved customer satisfaction as well?
Okay, so the honest answer is that there wasn't any explicit measures. So what we had, proxy measures, if you like. Team members were a lot happier. They were talking to each other. They were actually talking with people from other teams. They would know who is doing what, and that's the kind of thing. And we got things done a lot faster with a lot less stress. So weekend working was non-existent. We used to, early on, near a release time, like a month before a release, all holidays cancelled, who is available every day of the week, weekends, all that stuff. None of that happened as we got better. So those are the kind of things that we have. So I don't have, we experimented, I should say, with the happiness index that Jeff Sutherland and others have wrote about, didn't find it useful, so did not go with that.
Did employee turnover go down?
The organization, this particular organization, had very, very low turnover of staff to start with. And that's because probably majority of the team were third-party suppliers, stroke contractors, and a small core of permanent employees. So, yeah. So that wasn't really a factor, if you like, in this particular experiment. So not many people left. But they weren't leaving before.
Have you found any good ways of incentivizing people to optimise flow rather than thinking in their silo?
I think the best way for me, and I will carry on doing it this way, is do it through delivery. And I think you saw it in the other presentation by Martin Burns, is act your way into a new way of thinking. So deliver, earn your stripes, earn your seat at the table. So if you deliver, and you can deliver and gain the predictability and reliability, then you will get that flexibility to start, flexibility both from the organization perspective to choose other work, but also flexibility from your perspective to extend, if you like, or expand your muscles a little bit. Because unless you show that something is working, it's very difficult to go in and say, look, hey, you guys have been doing this wrong for the past 30 years. I know you're a really, really successful organization and you make millions of money, but I know better. Well, guess how long I'm going to last.
Just follow up on the first question about customer satisfaction as well. How did you actually measure that, and is there what were the real benefits that you saw of reducing lead time, apart from the fact that you can respond to change faster?
So customer satisfaction, yes, we did measure. And again, so I need to explain this. Our proxy for the customer is the product owner. So the product owner satisfaction was measured on a weekly basis, and yes, that improved.
And to follow up, did you measure the actual value, like whether the amount of value being delivered was improved, or was it just based on the product owner's interpretation?
So yes, I know what you're saying, the ROI. So the simple answer to that is no. The longer answer to that is partially. So let me explain. Let me explain why. No, because the organization, and this is not unusual, I've worked in many organizations, I don't know of one that actually measures ROI or ROC, as Dan says, return on capital, risk adjusted. I haven't seen organizations measure that successfully. What they do, especially mainly because there are a number of projects, number of initiatives going live concurrently, and then you're releasing others. So what they do use is the trend of, are we earning more money versus our expenditure? And as long as that is on an upward trend and there is enough margin on it, you carry on investing in it. So from that perspective, yes. But, would you be able to say this particular project was supposed to bring in £10? Did it bring £10, £9.50, or £12.50? No. So that's what I mean partial. Anything else?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a general belief that Canva is more suitable when you're really certain of what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
What you're going to do. At least what I've come across so far. But one of the slides you said that you would like to move away from being certain to uncertainty. And you still think that if you manage flow, you'll be able to better equip yourself and how you can manage that uncertainty.
Yes.
So how would you do that in the practical sense of it?
Okay, so we have a few minutes. We've got 2 minutes, so I'll try and answer that question in a couple of minutes. Oh, yeah, we've got a bit more. Okay. You two need to talk. I've got two other people saying too. Yeah, that's right. So basically, uncertainty that I was referring to on the slide is certainty about if I have a product with all these features, I will have customers queuing buying it. So that's the uncertainty that I was referring to, changing that. But even if you're working in uncertain, and it's part of what we've done anyway. So the key thing for that, for me, is reduce your feedback cycles. So it's about having shorter feedback cycles. Now, what that means, it's very much context sensitive. You know, a shorter feedback cycle, if you've got a 10-year cycle, you know, a year might be good enough. But if you're working on 6 months, you know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever. So keep reducing your feedback cycles and keep asking the question of what it is that I can deliver to get feedback, because we always think that there is a lot more we need to have to get the feedback. If you keep challenging yourself on, do I need all this much? And then say, no, maybe I need this much. Maybe I just need a slight digression, but let me give you an example. So the coffee shop or the canteen, the restaurant, the staff restaurant, wanted to, there were queues lunchtime. There were lots of queues, especially on the sandwich bar, because you could make your own sandwich. So they did an experiment. They wanted a sandwich ordering system. Do you know what they did? They put an email, the sign with an email on to say, look, if you want to order your sandwich, email us before 11 o'clock with what you want, and it'll be ready for you to collect. Now, we could have gone out and said, build a fancy system, either in-house or buy it outside. But you know, that's what I mean by, you know, shortening. You build less and get the feedback. So we never built a system because I guess they didn't get that many people emailing them. You know, and there's another, that particular team did another experiment, like, you know, if we allowed you, because we have micropayment cards that you have to charge with cash. There was another experiment, a little iPad with, if we allowed you to use your credit cards to boost up, you know, would you use it, yes or no? You just went in, a bit like the red, green, yellow tags that you have in here. So that's all about shortening your feedback cycle. You know, you run that experiment for a week, how many people say yes, you decide whether you want it or not. Anything else? Thank you for your time.